Hi, this video that I'm doing now is going to be talking about things to take care of the mommy-to-be goat, the pregnant goat, what you do for her before and right after she kids, or what I do for them. And I'm suggesting things to you if you want to do it the way that I do. And also I'm going to show you a little bit about what to look for when the doe is getting ready to go into labor. So hope you enjoy the video. First thing I want to talk about is the care of the doe before she kids and what we do with our does before they kid. So the first thing is approximately 3 weeks before they kid, you want to give them a CDT shot. That is our vaccination of choice. There are multiple vaccinations. You can choose whatever you want to. Now, we don't give BOCI or Multimin or anything like that while they're pregnant. We've talked to people that gave BOCI shots midway or later in the pregnancy, and it actually put them into labor. And if you read the bottle, it does say that it can cause abortions in sheep. So we choose, because I'm the Murphy Queen, I don't want to take chances. We choose to give them the BOCI the day they kid, or Multimin, whichever we choose to do for their vitamin shots. But the CDT, the reason you give it 3 weeks before they kid is so that they build up some immunity and antibodies to pass on to the baby through the placenta. So it kind of helps the baby to have some antibodies when they first are born to fight off some of these things. So that's what we do at the beginning, before they kid, as far as shots. And so as far as lead feed, calcium supplements, things like that, we don't like to grain our does very much the last couple months before they kid, because it can make the babies grow a lot. Ours tend to put the grain into the babies, so they get good alfalfa to build up, calcium, to have calcium and protein to use to grow the babies. But we don't really start feeding them until the last couple weeks before they kid, and very gradual. The last week tend to be maybe a cup a day, once a day the last week, depending on what kind of milker they are. If they're a heavier milker, they'll be a cup. If they're not going to milk that much, then maybe half a cup. But we do it daily about the last week, do it every other day, the week before that, and might bring them in, depending on their condition, a couple times a week, the week before that. And calcium supplements we do use, recommended by our chiropractor. We switched from Tums as a supplement for calcium to the calcium gummies that you buy at Walmart or Walgreens, wherever. We use Vitafusion ourselves, and they seem to like that the best. It's a good brand. But we will start giving them the calcium chews before they kid to help fend off milk fever, ketosis, and the same thing, week or two before they kid, we'll start giving them calcium chews. If it's one that's having some issues like ketosis signs, we could give them before that. But basically that's what we supplement with. And then after they kid, of course, we give them a couple of those a day and make sure that they're good before we start backing them off. And our heavy milkers, they get that the whole year until we're drying them up. The lighter milkers, they may get it till summer when they're peak and start coming down. I'll start backing off their calcium, and they're doing good. But we do supplement them with calcium because we have dealt with milk fever, and they just sometimes, when they're a big milker, they can't get enough calcium out of their bones without having a problem. So we do tend to give them that supplement. So that's kind of the care before, at the end before they kid, and we do give the BOCI shot when they kid. And of course, we're selenium deficient here. Some places you're not. So BOCI is selenium and vitamin E, and we do not use MUSI, which is for larger animals. It is BOCI, which it's BOCI. SE, BOSE, and that is for goats and sheep and things like that. So if you're selenium deficient, it depends on how much you are as to how many of those you give a year, whether you need them when they're first kid. We tend to give it when they first kid, the first day, right when they kid, we give them either BOSE or Multimin if we're giving them Multimin as a supplement instead, not both. And the babies get a BOSE shot at birth at our house because we are very selenium deficient here in Southwest Oregon. And so they get the BOSE when they first kid, the newborns get the BOSE, and then the second day we worm them, and not the babies, the mamas, they get wormed the second day. The reason that we worm them right after they kid is worms are opportunists. They will do an overload when the doe or buck is at their weakest time, physically. And when a doe kids, that is her weakest time normally, unless she has an issue other times a year. That will be her weakest time, and that is when the worms will take hold. So it works out good that we do it when they kid, and then 2 weeks later is when we might start drinking the milk if the colostrum is all gone and it tastes good, so that the worm medicine has worked its way through, and it's safe to drink the milk then too. So when you worm them the day after they kid, then you're gonna have healthy milk to drink sooner too than if you wait. But the best time to worm a doe is right after she kids, just to make sure she doesn't get an overload because she's at her weakest point. So anyway, hopefully that gives you some information on care for the doe. Like I said, I'm not a vet. This is what we do at our farm, and I will show you some videos now that show when the doe is getting ready to kid, her belly starts to drop. Her sides, instead of being high up, will start to drop down. And right before she kids, they can get down so much that they look like they already had their babies. I have had times where I've gone looking for babies thinking the doe actually did kid already. So they can sink down quite a bit, and it's basically the baby's getting in position, getting in the canal, so it makes the belly drop. And the other thing is, we call it the udder fairy. So as they progress towards the due date, towards their birthing, their udder starts getting bigger. But the last 12 hours, approximately, if everything progresses like it should, the udder fairy should come and sprinkle her udder fairy dust on the udder, and the udder will go and get really big. And that is what we call when the udder fairy comes. The udder all of a sudden gets real big, firm to the touch, sometimes really tight. The teats fill with milk. That is within 12 hours or less, they usually have that udder fairy come. And it could be just a few hours, but usually 12 hours or less is when the udder fairy comes. So if you see that udder all of a sudden get real big, then be watching, because she's going to go in labor soon. And the other thing is the ligaments on either side of the tail. The hips lower, so hips to pin, start angling more, and then they soften the ligaments on either side of their tail. And basically, if you go to a doe that is not due or not pregnant, and you feel on either side of the tail, and then you go to the doe that is getting ready to kid, and you feel how soft it is, you'll see the difference, because some people say they can't really tell. You'll be able to tell when they soften up those ligaments. It's pretty obvious, and I'll try to show that on the videos, but I'm not sure if it'll show up real good, but I will try, so you can see the differences in the angle of the hips and how soft it gets around their tail. And those are signs to look for when they're getting close to having their babies. So there is the hips to pins. That's kind of the hips to the base of the tail, the bones on either side of the base of the tail. So that's what we're looking at. Those are does not due. So you can see what they look like. We're going to compare them. I have one other set to show you those, and then we're going to compare them to does that are getting closer to due. This one's actually not pregnant. This is Bon Bon. She's retired. Now that spotted doe that you can see the rump, she is due in a week. And she normally has a really level hip to pin area, really level back, and her hips are starting to change. Well, hi, Badaz. You can also see Birdie, who's due in a week, is really fat. And you can also see how Pia has her udder coming. Even though she's not due in a week, she's been getting an udder for quite a while. Here's how Pia's hips to pins. See how much more angle there is. She's normally very level, so her hips and her pins, the bones on either side of her tail, would be more level with each other instead of the downhill look now. Okay, so you can see how Pia's hips to pin, she is normally really level, so they are angled, and she is getting her udder in. So there you can see her udder coming in too. Her teats are filling up, and if you notice on her belly, her hips are poking up, and it's hard to tell, but you can kind of see how her tail's kind of shaking, that she is softened back there. And again, if I were to go touch it, it would be soft on either side of the base of the tail up towards the hips. But her belly has also started to drop, if you can tell. She was very high and wide like Birdie is, but see how the top of her belly is starting to sink down, and her udder is coming in more, but it's not hard yet, it's not firm, but it is definitely filling up. So the udder fairy is starting to work on her udder a little bit. But the sides of her belly, you can really see that it's dropped, especially on her right side. Okay, here's Birdie. She is getting closer to kidding. And so her hips came up. You can see how they're poking up. But then her tail has started to raise. And on either side of her tail is where I was talking about that it softens up. So if I were to go over there and touch that, that would be very, very soft. Birdie is still pretty high on her belly. Her udder's starting to come in, but not near as much as how Pia's did. Now her belly is still fairly high though on the sides, and her udder is coming in, but it's not in like udder fairy in yet. Yes, I can hear Legacy moaning. I don't know if you can or not, but she's getting a little fat. She's a first freshener, and she's getting a little fat now. She's due in a couple weeks. And there's our other first freshener, not near as fat, but laying out in the nice warm sun. It's a shot of Birdie's. You can see how it's sunk in. Her tail is starting to raise, and the ligaments are really soft on either side of her tail. You can kind of see that on her, but her belly's still up pretty high, and the udder still hasn't started filling up. She was a little more sensitive on her udder, which is a sign. So, and the right side of her belly is coming down a little bit. So she's definitely progressing. Thanks for watching the video. I hope it was informative. I hope you enjoyed it. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below and be join us and be one of our subscribers. And hit the like button if you like the video, so that YouTube and I know that people like the video. That's the best way to find out. So hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't yet, to subscribe to our channel so you can see all of our videos. And we will be making more videos soon, and fun ones and hopefully information ones, and we'll have new baby goats soon. Talk to you next time. Have a great day.